Hello, and thanks for tuning in again to another Crash Magazine look back. This time I'm looking back at issue number 24, which was the Christmas issue 85 to 86. So this magazine came in a bundle I bought off eBay recently, and it's in absolutely lovely condition. It looks like it's hardly been read, to be honest. The first thing you'll notice is the Oliver Frey cover as usual, and it's a portly Santa handing out a copy of Space Invaders to some rather disturbed looking alien. So yeah, he always had nice Christmas covers, Ollie, and this is another one. So there you go, lots of competitions as ever, and there'll be lots of pages in here, so let's get on with this one. I'm not particularly familiar with this issue, I must say, but first of all, an advert for Ocean. Now, a lot of people have very good memories of Ocean, but this wasn't a great time for them, to be honest. Their games were well advertised, and they were okay, most of them, but they weren't really hitting the heights that they would in about a year's time. Transformers, I remember being alright. It was quite disappointing in many ways because I love the cartoon and the toys. Knight Rider was dreadful. Rambo is probably the best of this lot. That was a pretty decent game. And Street Hawk, the game that eventually got released, was, I suppose, average or just above average, but just not really the excitement that you would get with some latter Ocean releases here. So, contents page. Now there's two or three interesting things about this issue, which we'll come to. And we're about to come to the first one. So here's just a summation of what everyone does at Crash, and all their roles. Now here's the first interesting thing. Those of you who know Crash particularly well in its history will know that it got into a bit of hot water with EMAP, who were the publisher of Sinclair User, which was Crash's big rival along with Your Sinclair, or Your Spectrum as it was previously. Now Crash, mainly under the auspices of its editor Graham Kidd, published an article called Unclear User, which was a very clear stab at Sinclair User itself, and EMAP took exception to this and took an injunction out on Crash. I can't remember what it was for. I think actually what they were hoping it was for would be defamation, or it wasn't defamation, it was for copyright, that was it, which Crash was easier for them to defend somehow. And basically EMAP were a huge publisher based in London, and Crash was obviously Newsfield based in Ludlow, and I think it was interpreted as sort of a David and Goliath battle, and although in this instance Goliath won because Crash had to back down, withdraw a load of issues, and I believe settled out of court a not insubstantial amount of money, they had to publish this, or Graham Kidd had to publish this apology as well. I believe that the sales of Crash, the publicity meant that sales of Crash went up, and a lot of people had sympathy for them as well, because basically you could see that it was just like a stab at, having a joke at the other magazine, and I think just EMAP basically had a bit of a sense of humour bypass about it all. So yeah, you can see here Graham, a bit of a embarrassing apology, but I remember reading this at the time and thinking, yeah, fuck Sinclair User, Crash is where it's at, I can't believe you're having to do this, and just imagining Graham Kidd writing this sarcastically, especially the bit where he says, we wish unreservedly to apologise to Sinclair User, its publishers and editorial staff, whom we know from continued contact to be knowledgeable and professional journalists and highly respected in the home computer industry. We consider that Sinclair User is a magazine of the highest quality. Yeah, you can just listen, you can just read the dripping sarcasm in this. So anyway, it's signed Graham Kidd, so they had to print it, no doubt for legal reasons. So on we go. First review, Robin of the Wood from Odin Computer Graphics, which was a really beautiful little maze game. That's the Crash Smash. Over 3 pages, that Crash Smash, 94%. Sequel to Beachhead, Beachhead 2, unoriginally named. Gets, what does that get? 74%. A lot of early issues of Crash did this. They had the reviews all over the place. Later on, for the main reviews, they kind of sorted that out. They still put budget reviews a bit higgledy-piggledy, but most of the main reviews were on one page. Panzerdrome, I remember that being a really neat looking game, but quite frustrating, and it gets 77% let down by its execution. Endurance by CRL, not heard of that, and Rockman, the budget game by Dean Carter and the Smiling Assassin. Wow, okay, not sure what he's up to there, but never mind. So Rockman gets 69%, Robot Messiah. Now, this is a second interesting part about this issue is it's got an advert for Scooby Doo. Now, Scooby Doo and the Castle Mystery, or In the Castle Mystery, was advertised by Elite. And if you look at these screenshots down here, I don't know how well you can see them, but they looked amazing, and it was like promising to be like some superb interactive cartoon. But as it turned out, got Scooby there. As it turned out, a lot of these screens, if not all of them, were mocked up, and actually the game didn't exist in any playable form at this point. And I think this was this issue would have come out in December, and I think Elite had been promising the game since October, so it was well behind schedule. But basically, they didn't have anything playable at this point, and all of these graphics were just basically mock-up screens. So we'll see a little bit more about that shortly. So there's the rest of the Robot Messiah review. Gladiator by Domar, International Karate, which was superseded by International Karate Plus a few years later. Sweevel's World, which is not a review, it's a preview. They're still previewing that game. Now, a rare budget Crash Smash here, and certainly a deserved one. It's for David Jones's Mastertronic Extravaganza Spellbound. Now, this was a sequel to Finders Keepers, which is a fairly decent arcade adventure, but Spellbound really took it to another level, and it's just, frankly, it's an amazing game, and 95%. It got 98% for value for money, which is not a surprise, seeing as it cost $2.99. This and Nighttime were probably among my top 10 budget games. I just thought these were amazing games, superb value for money. The puzzles were a bit obscure sometimes, but they were just superb games to play. This great window system. So there you go, that's Spellbound. Yes, I'm not sure my dad would have approved of that if he'd have seen that back in the day. Saboteur, another Crash Smash, another thoroughly deserved one in my opinion. A great game, basically a maze type game where you had to blow up this enemy installation by Clive Townsend. But really fun game to play. I remember having a lot of fun. Very imaginative game, very original as well. Although I don't think that's Saboteur, that screenshot there, so a bit of a blunder by Crash there. I think that looks like, I don't know, it must be some sort of weightlifting game or something. Jeff Cape's Strongman, by the way. Possibly. Roller Coaster by Elite, platformer game, but that scores a decent score. Elite, 94%. An advert for Elite. Victrola, now this is interesting because Crash reviewed a lot of games and gave them Crash Smashes that you probably wouldn't heard of or may not have heard of, and Victron was one of them for me. I remember having this on my television. It was a totally different game, but it's by Mike Follin, and it's the software house is Insight, so I've never heard of them. But yeah, Crash Smash for Victron. The rest of it's there. Victron gets 92%. Chmura, which, as I record this video, I've got an issue of Retro Gamer to my right here, and there is a making of interview with Shahid Ahmed, who coded this game. $3.95 and better than many full price games, the Crash review says. 71%, so well done, Shahid. Jeff Cape's Strongman, so this is where that rogue screenshots come from. Yeah, it's definitely the same game. So that was by Martech, I think it's 78%. They did a lot of personality sponsored games. Martech, personality based games. So lots of competitions. Lloyd Mangram's forum, which is basically letters page, as said in previous videos. Not Lloyd's fault. Yeah, fair enough. It's not Lloyd's fault. Never is it? And where's Scooby? Yeah, here we go. Letter complaining about no Scooby Doo. What's happening? Are you cracking up because nothing new and exciting has been thrown at your desk for you to review? Anyway, in your Scooby Doo preview you said that the game should be released at the end of October. Well, I looked in every computer shop for miles around without result. Finally, I phoned Elite, who told me I would have to wait until January the 6th, the new year, before I could get my hands on it. So what did happen to the release dates you told thousands about? Were you given the wrong information? Were there setbacks at Elite? Or were you just wrong? Or was, possibly, the game utterly nothing like its advert, and Elite were desperately scrabbling around trying to find someone to do a different game? Who knows? So more bugs action. Buccaneer by Insight. That was interesting. That was a game by... I thought that was a game by Firebirds. That must have been a re-release then. Interesting. I didn't realise that. I think I would have been disappointed to pay £8 for that. On we go. Lots of cartoons. An advert for Cassette 50. Did it include the watch by this point? Yes. Yes. So at least you got a calculator watch, which is just as well because all the games were crap. On we go. Advert for Gladiator, Tomahawk, Grumpy Gumphrey, Super Sleuth. Lloyd Mangram's Lookback at 1985. RealTime Software, this was back when they were still publishing games themselves. A game for the QL there. Night Flight, Star Strike 2, which is a brilliant game, and a Commodore 64 game there as well. An advert for some Ultimate games. Continuing Lloyd's Lookback, we always did that, Lloyd, at Christmas time. Some more adverts, some competitions, lots of adverts. Interview with Gargle Games guys, which on the left here you've got Greg Follis. That guy there, I think, is, yeah, that's Roy Carter, Royston Carter as it calls him, and the chap in the middle must be Ted Heathcote. Interestingly, this is probably the one big major software house that everyone knows little about, because these two guys basically don't want to know, don't want to be interviewed. They carried on into the 90s. There was a reboot of Tyranno Nog going to be released on the PC, which never materialised, and they kind of disappeared after that. So they're not interested in talking about the past. So the Gargle Games, a bit like Ultimate, remains a bit of a mystery. There he is, Greg Follis, looking contemplative. What's more adverts? Star Firebirds. Who's that by? That was another. They were quite big people, these Insight, releasing loads of games. Don't know what happened to them. Never heard of them. US Gold. Playing tips from Robin Candy. There's weird stuff going on with his eyes there. But anyway, lots of pokes and tips. Always invaluable. Map for Starquake. I mean, look at the size of Starquake. That's unbelievable, isn't it? You definitely needed a map to play this game. This always made me laugh. They were never shy, CRL, when it came to advertising. Now, Tau Ceti is a pretty decent game, but the greatest computer game ever written. Now, as much as I like Tau Ceti and love Pete Cook, I'm not sure it's the greatest ever written. It's some pretty good competition. Right, the Hotline Top 30 is voted for by Crash readers. Top of it is Way of the Exploding Fist, Hypersports, Fairlight, Spy vs Spy, Highway Encounter, Nightshade, Spy Hunter, Starquake, Matchday, and Nodes of Yesod comprise the top 10. So some pretty decent games there, all voted for by Specky owners. Playing tips carrying on. I like this advert here. Leisure Genius released a few games for the Specky, basically conversions of board games more often than not. You've got Monopoly there and Scrabble, and you've got all this family looking very excited about opening all their presents. What Specky games are we going to get? And then you've got the dog here thinking, what the fuck, where's my dinner? Leisure Genius. More playing tips. Zoids. Human Touch, a short story from Wilf Prigmore, whoever he is. Advert for another Crash Smash. Commando was obviously a arcade conversion by Elite, one of their first few conversions. It was a pretty brilliant game, to be honest. It lacked the music and the sound effects of the arcade game, as you might expect, but other than that it was pretty accurate, and it was coded by, I don't think it says who it's coded by here, no it doesn't, but it was written by Keith Burkhill, who would go on to do Space Harrier and Ghosts and Goblins, and also Nigel Alderton, who did Chucky Egg. So Commando, excellent conversion, 94% that scores. Lots more adverts and competitions. Skip past the educational bit. Voting there for best games of the year. Beyond, don't remember them advertising a great deal, so this is quite interesting. And they advertised by photographing boxes of their games. They always came in nice boxes, their games, although they were very crushable, if I remember correctly. Skip past Techniche as usual. Sorry, all you tech fans, but never really did anything for me. Oh, there's Sir Clive. Derek Brewster's Adventure Trail. Swords and Sorcery by PSS, and Seas of Blood, which I think was based on a fighting fantasy game. Yep, that was by Mike Woodruff and Brian Howarth. Shadow of the Unicorn. This was the famous game that brought down Microgen. It basically had a huge add-on with it, which must have cost thousands of pounds to produce. And the game, if it had been really out of this world, it maybe would have justified it. But Shadow of the Unicorn just got 7 out of 10 from Derek, so not really worth the extra expenditure. Some more reviews there. Advert for Monkey. Strategy games. Index. Jet Set Willy 2, which was a bit of a con because it was basically Jet Set Willy with a few extra screens. So software projects were still going well here. A few nice games they got going there, but mostly going off their older games by the look of it. Now this is one of the last bits of this issue, and this is a really interesting feature. I remember reading this at the time. It's about Ollie. And as some of you may or may not know, Ollie, before he worked for Newsfield, he did a lot of other artistic work, as you might imagine, including this stuff that they've presented here. He did various different covers for books. This is a jacket illustration for the Hamlin Book of Horrors, which came out in 1977. This one here is for a novel called Slave Island, which was published by Souvenir Press and written by a chap called Simon Finch. So that's the cover for that by Ollie. And over here we've got another cover for a double-page marine illustration for Look and Learn. He did a lot of work for Look and Learn, Ollie. So he had quite a decent career before Crash, Ollie, including Dan Dare. Did some comic book work for Dan Dare. And another comic here, The Trigan Empire, which was from Look and Learn IPC magazines, apparently. And another illustration for Look and Learn about the Explorer Magellan, again from 1977. So quite a long and established career Ollie had before he started doing the covers to the magazine that we're all big fans of. And as you can see, there's a sort of breakdown here of how he did the cover for this very issue. So that's a nice article to finish on, showing you the previous work of Ollie and how he goes about making his covers. Thanks for watching this video, a look back at Crash issue 24 from Christmas of 1985. I'll hopefully post another video soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.